So today we are going to discuss on Linux administration. So I am start from the basic onwards. So the most widely used operating system is Windows, because Windows is a graphical user interface. Anybody they can easily understand, easy to learn, easy to work. So in Windows we have two types of operating systems. One is client OS, second one is server OS. So client OS versions are Windows 10, 8, 7, XP. So server versions are 2019, 16, 12, 8, 2003, 2002. But latest version is 2019, but still companies they are going to use 16 and 12 only. So this is Windows server client. What is server? What is client? So server provide resources to clients. Clients access the resources from server. Like we have different kinds of servers like file server, web servers, database servers, application servers. Different kinds of servers we are going to manage. So we are going to learn the server administration, but not on Windows. We are going to learn the server administration on Linux. So like Windows, we have another operating system is there, that is Linux or called Unix. Unix or Linux, both are same. So Linux is like Unix like operating system. So Unix flavors are Solaris, IBM AX Unix, HP Unix, Sconix. So Linux is a flavor of Unix, but Linux is a open source. So open source means anybody they can download the source kernel from internet. They can develop their own operating system. Like that in Linux, we have number of flavors are there. So those are Red Hat Linux, OEL, Ubuntu Linux, CentOS, Fedora Linux, SUSE Linux, Debian Linux, Kali Linux. So these are the, so we have number of flavors out of the 100 or 300 flavors are there. So out of these flavors, these are the familiar flavors. In production environment, most of the servers we are going to run Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So the course we are going to learn on Red Hat Enterprise Linux only. So once you learn any flavor of Linux or any flavor of Unix, you can easily work on all flavors because of structure is same, the concept is same, the theoretical part is same, but some of the administration commands are different. So if you learn that commands, it is enough. No need to learn like Red Hat Linux, no need to learn OEL, no need to learn Ubuntu Linux again and again. For example, so we are going to learn the car driving on Maruti 800. 1 year we drive on Maruti 800. After 1 year you bought a Benz car. So again we are going to learn the driving. No, we cannot go for the learning the driving. Already you know the driving, but the features of Benz car between Maruti 800 and Benz car, to get the features, it will take 2 or 3 days time. Like that, if you learn any flavor of Unix or Linux, you can easily work on any other flavors because the concept is same, features are same. Some of the administration commands only difference. Now, coming to Windows, here I discussed Windows. We have two types of operating systems, client OS and server OS. Like in Linux environment also, we have two types of operating systems, server OS and client OS. So enterprise Linux means server OS. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux, server OS. Red Hat Linux, desktop, client OS. Ubuntu Enterprise Linux, server. Ubuntu desktop. Ubuntu Linux, desktop OS. SUSE Linux, SUSE Enterprise Linux, server OS, SUSE Linux, desktop OS. Like enterprise means server OS. But if you go for company, we can have the Windows servers, we can have the Linux servers. But why the companies they are using the Linux servers? So Linux is a more secured operating system than Windows. But how do you differentiate the security between Windows and Linux? You have to know the structure of operating system. Windows hardware means you bought a PC, desktop or laptop, that is nothing but hardware. Top of that you installed Windows kernel, nothing but this is a Windows OS. Top of that you are working. This is the structure of Windows. Linux hardware, you bought a laptop or desktop, so you install Linux kernel. that is shell. Top of the shell you are going to work. So shell is the security layer in Linux. Shell will not allow you to run any unknown commands. Shell will not allow you to run any unknown programs. That is the reason the valuable crores of rupees databases and applications we are going to run securely on Linux operating system because of shell. Now see here, this is architecture. Linux is more secure OS than Windows because of shell. So hardware, top of the hardware we have the kernel, top of the kernel shell. So shell is nothing but a command interpreter. See, cp, grep, tar, who, set, sort, these are all the commands. Who are executing these commands? Shell is executing. If they are known commands only, it will go to the instruction to kernel. Otherwise, there it will stop unknown command, unknown program. Who is giving these commands? So user is giving the commands. So between the kernel and user, there is a program is called that is shell. That is the reason the valuable databases and applications we are going to run securely on Linux operating system. But in Windows we don't have the shell concept. But they introduced the PowerShell, but it will not come in architecture. We have to install and we have to execute the commands. So this is the difference between Windows and Linux. So Linux is a more secure than Windows because of shell is there. In architecture level, we have shell is there. Again, if you come into the OS level, for example, here Ali, for example, a user is called Ali. Dollar prompt, user can get the dollar prompt. I created user account Ali. See, Ali is the user. He logged into the system. He created one file. So touch is the command to create a file. File name is F1. So whenever user created a file, by default, permissions will apply. So the permissions are divided into three portions. First portion goes to user. User is nothing but owner who created file. He has read-write permission. Second portion goes to owners group members. So owners group means owners group. So owners group means, for example, Ali is a member of AWS group. So in AWS, in your company, you can have number of groups: AWS, DevOps, Java, .NET, developers, testing managers, team leaders, like that. We have number of groups. So Ali is a member of AWS group. In AWS group, again, some team is there, AWS team. Those are called Ali group members. Means owners group members, they are having read-only permissions. Like AWS, we can have some other groups like DevOps. So owner can having read-write permission. Owner groups are having read-only permission. Others are having read-only permission. So once we are working with Unix operating system, if you send a file to me, so I can have only read permission. If I am your group member, or if I am a other group member, whatever it may be, I can have only read permission. I don't have the execute write permission or execute permissions. Even owner also cannot have the execute permission. So whenever you want to execute a file, you have to change the file permissions. We are going to in our classes how to change the file permissions. So by default, Windows operating system don't have individual file permissions, but Linux by default there is a individual file permissions. So no extension file names in Linux. But how the Linux operating system identify the files? Linux operating system identify the files with the type of file or mode of file. So type of file or mode of file. Mode of file means permissions. Already we discussed file permissions. Mode of file means permissions. So type of file, normal file or block special file or device file or character special file, like that. Linux operating system identify the files with the type. Windows operating system identify the files with the extension names. Extension names means like .exe, .dat, .bat, .mp3, .doc means extensions, executable, database files, batch files, media player files, Microsoft Word document like that. But Linux cannot understand the executable files. Linux can understand only type of file. So, and mode of file. Mode means permissions. And in Linux, the entire chapters we are going to discuss with prerequisite is when we are going to start the Linux administration. First, we are going to learn basics of Linux. So, basics of Linux means how to create the files, how to create the directories, how to copy the files, how to copy the directories, how to rename the files, how to rename the directories, how to move the files from one location to another location, how to move the directories from one location to another location, and simple filter commands, linking files, file permissions, advanced filter commands, and advanced file permissions so the basic commands which we are going to require in administration. First, we are going to discuss about the basics of Linux. Then we are going to start the Linux administration class. So in Linux administration, it is divided into two portions. One is standalone administration. Second one is network administration. So, for example, when you are going to learn Windows server administration, first today onwards, by day one onwards, we are entering into the networking part only. Install the Windows server, assign one computer name and IP address, install the Windows client, assign one computer name and IP address, connect in the network. The topics will start. but Linux, but Linux first to 20 days classes, first to 20 days classes only standalone administration means single server, because we are going to manage the valuable databases and applications securely on Linux servers. So standalone administration tasks are very important for managing the databases or whatever it may be. So 80% of the interview questions they will ask from the standalone. Then 20 to 25% maybe depending upon their requirement, they will ask the questions on network administration. So what are the standalone administration tasks? We are going to discuss now briefly. I will explain. Standalone. See, first chapter we are going to discuss installation of Linux operating system. So how to install your Linux operating system? What are the requirements to install the Linux operating system? How the Linux operating system support the partitions on the disk, like primary partitions and extended partitions and logical partitions? And what is the operating system directory in Linux? But in Windows, operating system directory is C drive. So C is corrupted. Your OS is corrupted. So D drive data, E drive data, F drive data is safe. Linux slash means main directory. Under slash only we have different types of subdirectory. In Linux, everything is under slash only. If slash is corrupted, all the data is going to be corrupt. But with slash, which optionals we are going to select? At the time of installation of Linux, we are going to discuss in our classes the structure of Linux root file system. So with root file system, which options we can select? So how we are going to select the optionals? Why we are going to select the optionals? We are going to discuss in the class installation of Linux. Next to disk management. So after installation of Linux, if you want to create the new partitions like in Windows, how you are creating D drives, E drives, F drives, like in Linux also, after installation, I can create the partitions because so database administrator want 500 GB space to install the database. So Hadoop administrator wants he install the Hadoop software. He get 1 terabyte of space. As a Linux administrator, so you have to create the partitions on the disk. You have to make the partitions available to them, like D drive, E drive, F drive. So they will install their softwares in the particular partitions. So that concept we are going to discuss in disk management class. It is a very important class because why we are using Linux for managing the valuable crores of rupees databases where the database stores on the disks. So disks management is very important. Next to boot process of Linux operating system. So this is a compulsory question in interview. When you power on the system, how the Linux operating system boot, how will it get the login screen? So between the power on to login screen, what will happen? In how many phases it will boot? In each phase, what it will happen? So everything they will ask the questions on booting process of Linux. So you have to explain the booting process of Linux. This is the compulsory question they will ask in interview. Next to run levels. So a run level is nothing but a software program under which a group of processes and services are exists. For example, in Windows we have a different modes are there, like safe mode with command prompt, safe mode with networking, last known good configuration mode, directory services restore mode. Like we have different modes are there. Same concept in Linux is different run levels. So in Linux we have total 7 run levels are there. So what are the run levels? So how we are going to use the run levels? How to write and run our own scripts in the particular run levels? So we are going to discuss in this class. Next to group management. So if you go for company, we have a different groups. Already I explained. Java group, managers group, TTL, team leaders group, testing and developers groups, and admin groups, Linux groups, AWS group. Like we have different groups. How to create the groups, how to modify the groups, how to delete the groups, where the group passwords information stores, where the groups information stores, what are the files. Like that they will ask the questions. So we are going to discuss in group management. Next to user management. So a user is nothing but a group is nothing but a collection of users. So all Oracle users you can assign Oracle group. All Java users I can assign Java group like that. So as a Linux administrator, you are going to create the user accounts. So by default, every user must have a uh, home directory. Without a home directory, the user cannot log into the system. So in Windows, the user's home directory C colon, you open C drive, you can see the user's folder. There the user's information stores. Like in Linux, whenever you create user accounts, by default it will assign /home as a home directory. But interview they will ask the question, I want to assign the home directory of Oracle, home directory Java for Java users, home directory Hadoop for Hadoop users. So like that, so the define values we have to assign. So everything we are going to discuss in user management and also password management of users, monitoring the user accounts and modifying the user accounts. So this is a big chapter we are going to discuss in Linux administration, user management. It is a very important chapter also. Next, quotas. So restricting the users to use unlimited space on the disk space and to create unlimited files in the disk space. This is nothing but user quotas. So for example, you can take your Gmail account. The quota limit is 15 GB. So when you reach your quota, you cannot get the new mails. You have to delete the old mails and you can get the new mails. Like in real time scenarios, whenever you are going to work on the server environment, you have to restrict the users. So you can use this much space only. So 1 GB, 500 MB, depending upon their work. So you can assign the quotas. So next swap management. It is nothing but a memory, swap memory. In Windows, we are calling as a virtual memory. So virtual memory or swap memory is nothing but, so physical memory is RAM. So some of the disk space you can utilize as a temporary memory is called swap memory. So whatever our hard disk is there, some of the space you can utilize as a memory with the physical memory is called swap memory. So whenever you are going to install the databases, the database vendors, they will give the prerequisite is to install the Oracle 12c database. So minimum swap memory is 5 GB. So as a Linux administrator, you have to create the 5 GB swap spaces. So how to increase the swap memory if it is low, how to create the swap memory, we are going to discuss in this chapter. Next to process management. So in Windows, you can see right click, go to Task Manager. So you can see the processes. Microsoft Excel is running, PowerPoint is running, Word is running, Skype is running, Task Manager is running. How much CPU utilization is going on, how much memory utilization is going on, how much disk percentage is going on. Like everything, you can see the graphical mode here. Same in Linux, how to manage the process, how to kill unnecessary process, how to increase the process priorities. So everything we are going to discuss in this process management class. Next, Red Hat Package Manager. This is nothing but managing the packages. See, operating system is nothing but a collection of packages or software programs. So while installing the OS, minimum packages are going to be installed. But as a Linux administrator, you have to install the new packages. You have to upgrade the packages. Unnecessary packages you have to remove. So by default, all the packages are available from the Red Hat Linux software CD or DVD. But additional packages you have to download from the Red Hat site. So this is the package manager. This is also daily tasks, important tasks on real-time environment. Next to yum server, yellowdog updater modified. So this is also a package manager. So this is RPM based package manager, but this is online. This is online package manager. Like in Windows, if you have internet connection, if you have a authorized OS, you can get the pop-up message here. There is a new version of Adobe Reader. Do you want to install or not later? Like automatically your system going to be update. So like that in Linux, if you want to make it your system online package manager server, you have to configure the yum. But by default, yum server with setup will come. But interview point of view, they will ask the question, how do you configure yum server? How to create the package repository databases? Explain. They will ask the question like that. So we are going to discuss in this class how to set up yum server. Next to logical volume manager. So logical volume manager is a software which can combine the physical disks as a single logical device. For example, the maximum size of the available disk in market is 2 terabyte. But your administrator, Oracle database administrator asks you, I want to install my database on single 6 terabyte partition. But the hard disk size only 2 terabyte. So how I can install, how I can create 6 terabyte partition? Normally it is not possible. But by taking the help of volume manager packages, you can combine multiple physical disks as a single logical device. So 2 terabyte disks I can buy, I can combine them. So 6 terabyte will come. There they can install the Oracle application. After 1 year, maybe our database is increased. 6 terabyte is filled. So there is no free space. Now you can expand your storage limit, add another disk. Again, you can get 2 terabyte. Like that, logical volume manager is a storage management solutions that allows the administrator to combine the multiple physical disks into a single logical volume. Next, RAID levels. RAID levels also related to disk management only. But in logical volume manager, it writes the data in sequential order. So RAID means redundant array of inexpensive or independent disks. So you can here also you can combine physical disks as a single logical device, but you can tell to the system how to write the data. Can I write the data sequential order? Can I write the data parallelly on multiple disks? Can I write the data parallel with parity? Can I copy the data mirroring? Like we have different two RAID levels are there. So we are going to discuss about these RAID levels also. Next to backup and restore. So by using which backup tools you are taking the backup in your company, they will ask the question. So you have to tell about the backup tools. So tar, dd, dump, restore, files and directories backup, the copying the data from one disk to another disk, and entire file system backup like root file system backup, Oracle file system backup. When our file system is corrupted, how to restore? So by using the restore command, we can restore the file systems. We are going to discuss here. As to scheduling jobs. So this is also a daily tasks in real times at jobs and cron jobs. So you have to whatever the daily tasks are there every time you cannot remember, you cannot run. You have to schedule them. So automatically they will run at the particular point of time. So at jobs run the job only one time. Whenever the job is executed, it removes the job, one time job. But repetitive jobs, Every day evening 6:30 p.m. take the updated files backup. Every month, first date, 15th date, the users who logged into server, what they are doing. Every day when my server is peak hours, how much system activity report is going on. So like that, you can write the repetitive jobs in cron jobs. So these are the standalone administration. See here, say there is no single network word. So 80% of the interview questions they will ask from this. Then we can go for the networking. Linux networking. How to configure Linux operating system in the network. How to assign the computer name or host name. How to assign the IP address. How to assign the default gateway. How to assign the additional IP addresses. How to permanent them. So Windows graphical mode, open computer name, change, restart, it will permanent. But Linux we have to write in files. How to permanent them. And how to configure telnet server. Telnet is a server to log in from one computer to another computer. So telnet means terminal emulator. So server is Linux, clients are Windows. I want to log in my Linux server from Windows client. How to log in? Configure the telnet server on Linux server and go to Windows client, run the command, go to command prompt, use telnet, you can log into Linux server. We are going to see practically each and everything. But telnet is not a secure connection. The password is going to be text mode. Maybe somebody they can hack your password. That is the reason they introduced SSH, secure shell. So by using SSH, we can log in from one computer to another computer. Linux SSH supports only Linux environment or Unix environment, but Windows will not support shell concept. That is the reason we are going to download the putty software. So by using third-party software putty, select the SSH protocol, you can log into your Linux server, you can work. So real times we are going to work like that only. So servers are Linux, clients are Windows. If you join as a Linux administrator, your company people will give one laptop or desktop to you. So they will install putty software on that laptop. They will give the credentials of Linux server. This is the IP address. This is your username and password. Log into the particular servers. Do the tasks. So we are going to do that like that. Then how to configure the FTP server on Linux. So file transfer protocol. We are downloading the files, songs, movies from the internet. That is nothing but FTP server. So how to set up FTP server on Linux? We have two types of FTPs, local FTP, anonymous FTP. So whatever we are using outside, that is anonymous FTP. So you can also go to the particular site, you can download the songs. I can also go to the same site, I can download the songs. Anonymous, it is not asking any password to anybody. But local FTP, you must have the password. Internally, if you give username and password, then only you can log in, then only you can download the files. So how to set up this local FTP and anonymous FTP? What are the port numbers of FTP? What are the daemons of FTP? What are the configuration files of FTP? We are going to discuss in this class. Next, NFS. So network file system. It is also a file server, but FTP is an offline file server. NFS is online. So I can share my folder across the network through all the systems or particular system or particular network or particular domain. So they can access my share. Whatever they are doing on client side automatically update on server side. This is online file server. Next file server is Samba. So sharing the resources from Linux to Windows. So server is Linux, clients are Windows. I want to install MS Office on all 100 Windows clients. So I have to set up the Samba server. So Samba server, I can authenticate some users to Samba. So they can access their Samba server. They can install the Windows related softwares. Next, DNS, everybody knows, maybe know or don't know, domain name service. It resolves the names with addresses, domain name with address, and host name with address. For example, we are using www.flipkart.com, website is opening, www.google.com, gmail.com, yahoo.com, rediff.com, xyz.com, abc.com. So all websites are opening, but you don't know the IP addresses of that websites. Because DNS server resolves names to addresses. Because you cannot remember the sites with numbers. Millions of sites we have. You cannot remember the numbers. 9.128.168.123, 2.122.222.198, Gmail account, like we cannot remember. But you can remember easily Gmail, Google, Yahoo, Rediff, like that. So DNS we are going to set up how to configure the DNS server in Linux. We are going to discuss. Next, Apache web server. So to configure the websites on Linux operating system, we can configure the different types of websites like IP based, host based, network based, host based, single IP multiple websites, single IP single website, and port based websites. We are going to discuss here. Next to NIS naming information, centralization of administration in Linux. So like in Windows, we have Active Directory domain services. In Linux, NIS. Centralizedly, the users, they can log in from any computer to the domain. Directly, they can give the username and password. They can directly log in. No need to use telnet and SSH. It is only for Unix environment. Next, DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, assigning the IP addresses automatically to the clients. So every mobile have a DHCP IP address. When you take the internet connection, automatically you can get the DHCP IP address. So DHCP IP address is only for clients. So always assign the manual IP addresses for servers. Servers IP addresses cannot be changed. Next, to Linux Kickstart server. How to install the number of Linux operating systems through network. For example, your company got a new project. That project requires 50 Linux servers. So they bought a 50 Linux, 50 systems, hardware systems. So you want to install operating system on that 50 systems. So individually, daily, if you take with their whatever the requirements they have, for that you are going to take two, three or four systems only you can install. 50 systems means maybe it will take 1 week to 10 days time. But they need to install within 1 or 2 hours. Within 2 hours, I want to make it 50 servers are going to be ready. So what you can do, configure one system as a Linux server, connect remaining all the systems in the network. So automatically boot from network BIOS. So BIOS, go to BIOS, select boot from network. They can communicate with your Linux DHCP server, get the IP address, connect your Kickstart server. The installation process will start. So like that, we can install the Linux operating system through network. In Windows, it is a WDS, Windows Deployment Services. In Solaris, it is a Jumpstart server. So these are the concepts we are going to discuss in our Linux administration classes. So once you take the admissions, we are going to start the basics onwards. So before going to start the basics, I will explain about the logical device naming conventions. Windows, what is the logical device name convention? What is Linux logical device names? What is Solaris logical device names? What is IBM AX logical device names? What is HP Unix logical device names? So Windows graphical mode, if you know, if you don't know, there is no problem. But while you are working with Linux, you must know the logical device names of hard disks, logical device names of NIC, whatever it may be, you must know. For that, we have the commands. So we are going to discuss in our classes in depth all these logical device naming conventions, physical device names, what is file systems, what are the different types of file systems. We are going to discuss in our classes. Okay, thank you. So tomorrow onwards, we are going to start the basics.